Come here.
All right. Welcome to Real Talk Finances, where it's all about living a great life. As usual, I like to talk about finances, but in terms of a great life, I talk about fitness, nutrition, health, wellness, if you will. And today's episode is to all the fathers, especially mine, i.e., dad. Much love. Lessons learned from my father. Shout out to all the fathers that are actually out there being accountable and taking care of their responsibilities. I'll go ahead and throw that out there. But queuing in back to you, Dad, and give you a shout out real quick. Can you introduce yourself for those who don't know you, just in terms of
Sure.
your military career and anything else you want to share?
Sure. Nate Robinson Sr., the proud father of Nathaniel Robinson Jr. By the way, we call him Rob mainly because my brother, whose nickname was Robbie. Robbie was a young kid, didn't really want to be called Junior. So Frank, my brother, said, listen, we're just going to call him Rob for short. So anyway, yeah, Nate Robinson Sr., a proud father again, as I said, and spent 22 years in the military. I retired as a lieutenant colonel back in 1998 from the Air Force. Went to work civil service a little bit. I also had some very good, Fortune 500 company experiences, and a lot of things that I try to share with my son. In addition, with my ex Yvonne Hutto Robinson, of course, Rob's mom. We lost her on the 8th of January. God bless her soul. She's in peace, of course. One of the things we really worked very hard on our son is to make sure that he understood who he was. He had a lot of good life lessons very early on in terms of, dealing with the racial inequities, some health issues. He was an asthmatic when he was younger. Of course, he grew out of that, had a very severe surgery when he was basically under 1 year old. Of course, he grew out of that too. And the two of us, Yvonne and I, we're very, very proud of him. I'm very even happy now that he's become really a better man than I was because at his age. So shout out to him. I'm going to let him lead. I'm going to do the best I can to follow. But as we do as fathers, we're going to take control when the young bull doesn't know what to do. The old bull has got to step in, lead.
Well, the old bull can take a seat for now. Then, okay. So, look, one of the things I definitely a lot of stories, right? Coming in the military out of high school, I remember getting stationed in Langley, Virginia. This is when you was still living in Chesapeake, so that was cool. That kind of brought us closer together. I remember all the yard work in your yard, man. The raking of the leaves on Saturday mornings, right?
Yeah,
And one of the lessons that I did get from that is, even as your son, you still paid me like I was
yeah,
just a regular person helping your yard, and that threw me off initially. But I came to understand why, and the main thing that you wanted me to emphasize on, or to learn, I should say, is value your time,
that's correct.
right? And that's something that I try and pay forward to people, even when they do small things for me, because nowadays people don't have to do anything. The world doesn't owe you anything. So when people are nice enough to do what they mean and actually follow through with it, I like to compensate them in some way. And some people aren't as good receivers as they should be. So money
Right.
doesn't always work with them, but there's always another way to show your gratitude. So I definitely appreciate you for that. And definitely shout out to my mom, even though things didn't work out between you and her initially. I definitely appreciate having my own relationship with both of you, and especially you, because very well as a father, man, that's a critical role
Definitely.
in a household. And it helped me stay on course. I think about some of the friendships that I had to get rid of because it didn't really standardize what I thought how a man should carry himself, right? And I
Right.
appreciate you just being that role model for me. I remember when I was younger, I would cry and whine because I was used to doing that with my mom, but you didn't really give me the spectrum of space to do that with you. It was always like, stop crying. Why you crying?
Yeah,
Use your words.
yeah,
And I appreciate that because I see
sure.
grown ass men sometimes still whining and complaining, not with their tears, but with their words. And it's very, it comes out very feminine, and complaining
Right.
doesn't get you anywhere anyway. So
Yeah.
definitely another thing
Well,
to appreciate. Go
yeah,
ahead.
and I think one of the things I really want to throw in because we're talking about the childhood. One of the things that I always try to share with my son, because again, I didn't have a father, growing up. He was absent. The only time I saw him was, I guess, 1 year when he showed up and he gave me a cap pistol and two little rolls of caps. And of course, one of the box got wet, so you can understand I only shot for a little while. Then the next time he came around when he heard that I was graduating number one in my class in college. So I always wanted to make sure that I was going to be there for my son. I mean, I would take trips in New York or wherever I was to make sure I showed up in the small town that he was living in because it's got to be very, very tough, to grow up without a father. And I didn't want him to go through that trauma. But one of the biggest lessons that I really try to teach him early on is, it's all about accountability and responsibility. going to put you on blast here a little bit, Rob, but I remember we had him in daycare, and he decided that he was going to basically follow a guy, another person, and pull out his private parts in daycare. He came home, he explained it to me. So I told him, before I beat you behind, I'm going to tell you why I'm disappointed. So I asked him the question again. So were you the leader or were you the follower? So Dad, I followed him. So I wore his behind out. And I told him, now, had you come down home and you told me that you initiated it, I would have probably given you some props. We'd have talked. But I want you to understand early on, you get in just as much trouble if you are a follower as opposed to be a leader. So when you step up, you can apologize. But when you follow someone, you're really an idiot. And, those were the lessons that I really try to keep on making sure that he understood, because those things were important. We all make mistakes, but as long as you make them honestly and you're leading it, you can move on. So I still think about those days. So
Yeah, that is funny, man. Let me see. So as I got older, I remember I sent you an email. This is when I was still in high school, and my grammar was all messed up in it. I forgot what I asked you, but your response, you didn't even answer my question when you responded to my email. You gave me all these corrections and pretty much told me I was trash and I need to do better in life. That's how I took it, right?
Right.
But I appreciate that, man, because who would have thought I would have grown up liking English? And obviously I like math too, but English is so important. People judge you by the way you sound, the way you talk, enunciate, pronounce your words, spell.
Yeah.
I see grown adults get laughed at every day almost by the emails that they send. People call you over to their computer like, look, can you read this real quick? Because I'm going cross-eyed trying to make sense of this. You know what I mean? And this is before they get the response that they're looking for.
Right.
So before you know it, people are already calling you a dumbass before they even meet you, and I get it now and I appreciate that. And I just appreciate the tough love, man, because as young boys, we need that, because I feel like sometimes there's already enough background noise in society that I feel like can feminize men in terms of us learning how to use our aggression for good versus, don't be so this, don't be so that. It's like, as a boy, I appreciate you letting me be, but then still grooming me into the man that I needed to be to make it in this world, man. And I love your analogy between leading and following, because I definitely, I bump heads with people sometimes when I don't trust their words, because I'm like, I'm not following that.
Better believe it. Yeah,
definitely. But
and I think at the end of the day too, we're not going to spend a lot of time on the leadership issue, but right now it's sorely missed in this country. The key thing is I think people really respect you more, when you have an opinion that really makes sense, and it's not like you're just voicing an opinion. You're trying to make things better. I remember when you were in your, very critical mission, the operational side. I was very proud of you, because you told me many times that what you did, you really stepped up when you saw that something was really running afoul in the workplace. You stepped up. You also offered solution to the issues. And most people, they'll push back initially on you for that. But when they can see that, wow, this person has come up with a resolution for this problem, I can, more or less stomach my pride for a little while that I didn't do it, but at least he was able to do it. And I think that has really helped you through your career. And I hope that you continue using, those same skill sets and the same type of initiatives, as you move on, for the rest of your life on this earth. So.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Something else I just thought about is random. I appreciate like the hygiene, like lessons. Man, I tell you, there's so many times when I was a young kid, I would forget to put on deodorant. As I started growing hair, just the grooming techniques, like everything. And some of that I kind of added to myself, but just the importance of making sure not only do you know how to present yourself in terms of how you talk and communicate, but people can't be smelling you before you show up either.
Sure.
Right.
But listen, I'm going to put you on blast again, though, folks. I'm going to tell you, when Rob used to come over to visit, my God, I thought I would have to basically get an extra, 50-gallon water tank, because he would spend so much time in the shower, and whenever coming around, the way looking at him, he's playing with this hair stuff. I used to ask you, Brian, all the time, "Is our son okay? I mean, is he going to be, yeah, but so, those are just our concerns that Yvonne and I used to laugh about sometimes, but, that was it. But no, everything turned out good. And, I've also learned some, some major lessons from you too. And I like the good thing I want your viewers to understand is that one of the things that we have, and sometimes I'm very shocked at how really things worked out, because we grew up so much similarly, having to protect our moms, felt that as young boys, we wanted to be there regardless of whatever. Our mothers were really at the top of the list. And I was proud of that. Also losing our grandfather really around the same age. I lost mine at 12. I think you were around that same age too. And then just really having to figure all of this stuff out, with more or less the culture issues, the racism, just basically growing up, trying to figure out what are we going to do next, the financial challenges, dealing with the poverty, and really, to come out the way that I did, and then to see the way that you've come out. And that's why I tell you all the time, you're so much further ahead of me. When you're going to retire, you'll be like 38 years old. I retired at 44. And, use those 6 years to your advantage. I mean, just don't make major mistakes. Don't be careful of the words that you give to people, because most people do not keep their words, especially in relationships. They'll say anything that's possible to really get you. And if you have any cash that's ahead, bottom line, before you know it, because you're going to be a loving person, you will make your word. You'll end up giving it to them, even against, wishes of your attorneys if you get involved with that. So protect your wealth, protect your heart, protect your gut, protect your brain from anybody, regardless of relationships or not, and feel them out, and make sure that the thing that I really miss about Yvonne, and I say this all the time, is that we started off together from nothing. All we had was basically dreams, and we were very smart. She was a chemist, of course. I was a biologist. We clicked. We worked very hard, and that's one of the things I'm very proud of her. I mean, she always made her way. She paid her way. She was very responsible. And that's, the thing that I really want you to look for in terms of a female, that it's got to be one-on-one.
Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. Speaking of relationships, I would laugh because only a few girlfriends at the time made it to the house to visit you, and they would always be like, "How's your mom?" And I'm like, "Well, she's easy to me. It's my dad you need to worry about." And yeah, man, I remember a couple times I would just bring him in the house. And I'd be like, all right, I'll be back. I'll just go
Right.
upstairs and just
Go
sit on the
upstairs.
stairs
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and listen to y'all talk in the kitchen, man. And
Yeah.
sometimes I just have the biggest laugh on my face because I can just hear them kind of maybe squirming in their chair, like, damn, why he
Right.
asking me all these questions, right?
Yeah. And in all fairness, I just want to make sure your viewers understand what we were talking about too. I'm a pretty fair person. I know a lot of ladies, when they fall in love and things really don't work out, they end up getting, the short end of the stick. So what I was really telling most of them, of course, once they got past that hard question, when I tell them, listen, you basically heard of a mother's boy, but I'm telling you, you're talking about a daddy's boy now. I'm going to protect my son, but I'm also going to protect you if you're going to get in a relationship with him. I emphasize to them, never sacrifice their career interests for love, because those things you can put on the side, and if it's real, it'll be available to you later on. But when you give up your career, at the end of the day, you're going to be getting the short end of the stick. And for the most part, I think most of them listened. And, sometimes Rob would keep a few of them from me because he knew, I guess, well, if I know what my father's going to tell me, if he doesn't get a chance to get on them, he's going to pry me until he gets out of me. And I just don't want to go there. So, but at the end of the day, it all works out, for the good. So,
Yeah, definitely. So what are the pillars that you like to live by, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, I think the pillars really came from a very interesting thing. It was the spring of 1987. My wife and I, we were going through some pretty rough issues, and
Yeah.
part of the problem was more or less, driven by me, because I grew up without a dad. I had, a speech impediment. I stammered. I stuttered. It was always, having to be very competitive in the workforce, and of course, dealing with the color of my skin, where you're from, etc. And it was pretty tough. So my first 8 or 9 years in the military, I just soared like nuts. I mean, I was very successful. I'd done everything right, but I spent very little time on my family, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was so successful, up at the top of everything. Everybody was proud of this guy. You give him something to do, he excels, had won so many different awards, and I was really losing the most important thing that mattered to me, my family. And I had to step back and say, my God, if I continue like this, what in the world is going to happen? So the first mistake I think I made, and I try to emphasize to people, is because I was so I know, hungry for success, to prove the fact that a young boy can come out of the South in poverty, he can overcome a speech impediment, he can speak with rulers of the world and just be so professional, that I was not really living my authentic life. And when you talk about authenticity, a lot of people fail to deal with this. I so listen, I've read all the books, I read all the poetry, all the poems, etc. I can't do this by myself. I need virtual mentors. So I started reading a lot of success magazines. I just looked for everybody who was in a position, not mainly from a perspective of having money, but basically who had gone through issues and figured their lives out. So 1987 was when I started the deal that there were a couple of things that I had to identify. What were the shortfalls, and what were the things that I really need to focus on and fix? And they were very simple. There were, 7 pillars, and pillars is PILLARs because they're like, the stepping stones or the columns. The first one is always going to be, the career that you pick. You could have a business, you could be a home wife, you could be whoever you wanted, but whatever you chose as a career. The second one is really going to be community. And those things about the community, they encompass a couple of things. It's where we live, it's where we work, it's the people that are around us. And of course, the third one is always going to be about that financial piece, because without the finances, there's nothing you can do. You can have all the love in the world, it just doesn't get there. And of course, if you focus too much on the finance, you're really going to miss another area, which is going to be the health and wellness piece. And that's more or less number 4. And I think number 5, even though this was the catalyst of me looking inside myself, it was all about the relationship. It's not just a relationship with your family or with your spouse or with your girlfriend, boyfriend. It's the people at work. 6 was basically, spirituality. And a lot of folks ask me, well, why would you only focus on spirituality? We're big on religion. Well, I will tell you, and you're seeing a very good example of this in this world today, is when people focus on religion and politics, they screw themselves over, because what they do, they give up their particular identity to follow someone else. When you do spirituality, that's that big picture. That's God. That's anything that you want to believe in that really helps us get through trouble. When we can't sleep at night and the whole world has shunned their backs on us, and even churches have closed their doors and says, because you were a fool, you gave me the tithe and the offering, but you didn't do anything for yourself. Why you want me to help you? And then one of the most important one, which I was not able to do for many years, other than traveling around with the military, is travel. You've got to take some time to leave that zip code, to leave that city. And if you get a chance to go overseas, see the life, that other people are living. I wasn't able to travel as a kid, but I'll tell you what, I told a lot of lies every time I went on summer break. When I came back from my summer thing, because I read so much in encyclopedias, we didn't have the internet back then. I had traveled everywhere. I could make up stories, and I was even flying because I would sit in the yard looking around at clouds. So, those are the 7 pillars. And then within those 7 pillars, you can identify shortfalls that you have. But if you don't have 3 key enablers that's going to make those happen, guess what? You won't get anywhere. They'll just be dreams or hopes. So how do you basically focus on those pillars and take those things that are important to you and turn them into dreams? There are 3 steps. You got to identify, as I said before, what the why is. Why would you want to improve your career, etc. And then once you do that, you've got to set those realistic goals. Because if you don't have the realistic and relevant goals in each of those categories, guess what? You're not going to get anywhere. They're just hopes. And then, of course, when you run into those doubters, you're really going to basically just, put your dreams on hold and won't do anything. And that segues right into the last of the 3, which is basically the obstacles. You've got to understand your obstacles are just a slight impediment in the way, slowing you down from getting to your destiny. And that's how I live my life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 2 scoops of Raisin Bran right there, man. I hear all of that. All right.
Yeah.
I would tell you about when you say being hungry for success, again, kind of like we talked in the thrift savings episode, I see a lot of people just putting so much energy in their career and things that they're expendable at. But yeah, they're not there for their family. So I definitely appreciate you acknowledging that. I remember Mom and I had this song about you that I barely remember, but I know you remember.
A cold-hearted snake, all about money, 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 money.
Oh yeah. So I see now where that came from, right? But yeah, it's that balance, right? Because as I transition out of the Air Force here early next year, I just feel like you see people that they're not even ready for their own life. They don't even know what that looks like, because the military has been their identity for so many years. And not to shame them for it, but it's like life is bigger than the 20 years that you do in the military, or 30 for some who go that far. Like, what about your relationships, and what about it when you hang all this up? Because the military active duty is just barely 1% of the U.S. population, and the reality is, when you retire, nobody cares about your rank.
They don't care. Yeah, they don't care.
The few who do don't really matter. So, nah, I hear all of that, man, and I definitely appreciate you sharing that. I don't want to ramble. I'd rather listen to you if you have anything else you want to share for this Father's Day episode. Is there any other thoughts that you want to talk about?
Well, no, the only other thing I would really want to say, and just want to emphasize, especially to the young audience that you may have, is that it's really never too early to learn how to be a parent. One of the things that I found out, and I still see to this very day, a lot of people, they're so excited that, when they get married, they spend all their money going on places like Aruba and wherever they can find. To me, I think that the best thing that people can do, especially in today's world, because things tend not to last, is if you want to really have a union, start building that base. And that the most important thing in that base is your finances. I don't care what anybody says, you've got to have that.
Yep.
Because with that, at least you've got a base. And I would just tell you, I mean, even if you were to get married, one of the things we have discussed so many times is all about, putting that stuff in writing, setting up a prenuptial agreement. You can always change your mind. I'm not just talking to you, Rob. I'm talking to anybody who's listening. But set up the agreement. That way that everybody comes into a relationship. And if it's going to be marriage eventually, everybody starts off even. If you contribute, then this will be yours. If this other person contribute, then of course this will be mine. And then when you get to the point of wanting to go joint, you do that. Now, being separate is not really a curse, because as most people know the laws, let's say if your name is on someone else's piece of property and something happens to that particular person, guess what? Now you own all of that. And most people don't really have the same kind of financial habits, that everybody else will do. So at least it gives you a time. You can always cancel that. The agreement, or you can just basically ignore the agreement as you fall deeper and you get that respect. And I think the other thing is really understand that everybody sooner or later will have to hang it up, which means that we're going to retire. And the segue that I have with those 7 pillows and those 3 enabler steps of mine is to always tell people that try to create the best lifestyle that you can create for yourself. And it's not just about you, it's for all of those things that are involved, because the goal of everybody should be not to retire sick and broke. Now, you can retire sick, but if you've got money, you can be okay. You can retire broke, and if you have health, you still have a chance. But in this country, and even in the world probably, if you retire sick and broke, you're done, because no one cares. Okay. So that's one thing I really like. Those 2 points we'll be able to leave, for your viewers to ponder, and for you, really. So.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, I appreciate your time. Definitely some gems dropped on this, and I appreciate you sharing transparency, even though I was like the butt of some of those jokes, but it's all good. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I got for this episode. I appreciate you all watching, and until next time, we'll be recording. All right. Thanks, Dad.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day, folks. Thank you. Take care.
All right.